by G Sports. You got a short and sweet LSU football, baseball recruiting update, and a report card for LSU's depth chart in 2024 coming right at you. We go live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so you never miss another stream. G, how you doing today, man? Good to hear from you.
Appreciate it, man. You know, it's always a pleasure to come on the show, man, and talk some LSU and about sports.
We've had a lot change over this past week for LSU. Some good, some bad. We've got the MLB draft combine going on. You've got some transfer portal buzz for the baseball team. LSU football has some recruits making a decision here shortly. And then, we looked over the depth chart a little bit, and I see some very, very bright spots for 2024, but we'll kind of elaborate on that as the stream goes, and then we'll cap it all off with the Boston Celtics hanging the 18th banner in franchise history. We saw it
Right.
coming just because, look, when you go up 3-0, I feel like everybody pretty much gets the memo. The Mavericks are a younger squad, and they're kind of, I feel like they're kind of in the Celtics' shoes if you compare, their situation years ago. But we'll dive into that one a little later. Let's start this off with the football recruiting update. Everybody knows the 2025 recruiting classes. Honestly, the talk of college football recruiting in general, depending on who you ask, they're ranked in the top two, we'll say. Some people have them second, some people have them first. Notre Dame is kind of the toss-up that normally gets in front of them. But they're headlined by Bryce Underwood and Harlan Berry, and they got a couple of key pieces that they could add to this class. Of course, DeCorian Moore will be making his decision here shortly. He did decommit from LSU, so that one would be kind of a toss-up if you ask me. You got Elijah Barnes making a decision here as well. LSU is kind of heavily a factor in his recruitment if you ask me. And then last but not least, Jamie French, who came over on campus about 2 weeks ago. This is one of those moments where if DeCorian Moore does take the projected move to Texas, this is kind of how you reload, and this is kind of how you get back and you don't miss a beat here. So these decisions are going to be pretty important. We'll keep you updated on them as the summer goes. But G, how are you feeling? What's your pulse on this LSU football recruiting situation?
I think they're in a good position right now, man. You know, we're still in the summertime. A lot can happen from now into signing day. As you've seen in the past, you'll get a commitment early on and think your recruiting class is in a good place, and then 2 weeks before signing day, the kid will flip on you. So, people should understand that the way LSU recruiting work, sometimes kids get late offers. Sometimes you have some late bloomers, some kids that just come out of the woodworks in their senior year and they get that offer like a Bernard Causey. Bernard Causey got that offer late, and he ended up being part of this 24 class for LSU. So that has been a staple of LSU recruiting, even going back to when Ogeron and Les Miles was the coach. They always get probably about 3 to 4 kids that nobody had on their radar for LSU recruiting in that class, and they end up signing on signing day. So I think they're in a good place, man. As long as you keep Bryce Underwood under wrap, which I think he will stay under wrap because he's been saying all the right things. LSU should be in a good place, man, because he is the future. And if anybody has seen Bryce Underwood and been around him, he makes you feel like he's going to win a national championship once he becomes a starting quarterback there. So I think LSU is in a good place recruiting-wise.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the main thing a lot of people are waiting to see is Bryce Underwood get on campus, just because of all the good, positive chaos that's going to ensue around him. I do have a quick question, kind of popped in my head. Everyone's scrolling on social media. They see all these recruiting photo shoots, the pictures, the graphics. Keelan Moses the other day takes his visit to Texas A&M, and he gets LSU Twitter and LSU social media shaking up, putting on the Aggies uniform. What is the probability? Like, kind of walk me through this. I understand in the recruiting side of things, you want to. It's business. It's leverage. You got to hear every offer out. You got to go take every visit, and you got to see what's out there. Just because, we can even dial it back to a visit you've had with Kyron Lacy. Just go see LSU. Just go be immersed in that experience. Kind of talk to me about what Keelan Moses could be doing, and just, is that a panic button picture, or is that something where you're just like, it's all part of the process?
It's a part of it, man. I tell kids all the time to go see other places. right? If you only go see one school and that's all you ever see, I feel like you're doing yourself a disservice. It's kind of like if you go on a car lot to go buy a car, you're not gonna buy the first car you see.
Yep.
You might really like that car, and it might be a car. That might be the car of your dreams. But you need to go see what else they have out there, just to compare it to your dream school. Which Keelan Moses said, years ago that LSU was his dream school. And now I don't know if that has changed over the years, but I think I remember him saying that some years ago. And I think he's solid, man. I think Frank Wilson's been the lead recruiter on that. And then with Blake Baker coming in, I think that has made Keelan feel even more comfortable about coming to LSU because Blake Baker's track record with linebackers and what he has done over the years at La Tech in Missouri, it speaks for itself. And then Blake Baker's a good dude, a really good dude. Anybody that knows and been around him know that he does a great job not only developing linebacker, but he does a good job of developing people. Damone Clark, former LSU linebacker that got drafted, I think, in the third or fourth round by the Cowboys, has had nothing but high praise for Blake Baker. And I'm sure Keelan Moses has had some conversations with Damone Clark. And so, I think Keelan just going through that process, enjoying his visits, letting his family enjoy them visits. I think that Keelan understands with his older brother, Dylan Moses, not staying home and going to Alabama, how that probably changed the trajectory of his career. And I think he sees on this go around, look, let me stay home so I could make sure I'm playing for the home state right in my backyard where I'm comfortable with. I know Frank Wilson. I know this coaching staff pretty much. And I know I'm going to be set up for life after football by coming to a school like LSU. And then this 25 class they got with him, Harlan Berry, and Bryce Underwood. Like, that's it don't get no better than that. And if they add a couple more pieces at the receiver position, this could be probably end up being a top 3 class in the country when it's all said and done. I think I want to say they're 7th or no, I'm mistaken. They're 2nd overall in the country right now in the 25 class as far as recruiting classes. So they're in a good position, bro. Keelan Moses, I think he locked in. If I had to put my money on it, I'd say he's 100% going to sign on signing day.
Yeah, and you're talking about the comfort. I agree, especially because he's at University Lab School, and if you don't know what ULab is, it's kind of a breeding ground for LSU players, and not even just LSU players, but LSU students as a whole. The University Lab School's right at the end, right on Dalrymple Drive, right off LSU's campus, in the heart and soul of it. So he's been immersed in the culture, whether it be a tailgate Saturday, whether it be even a middle of the week event for another sport, baseball, basketball, what have you. Keelan's been around, and he kind of gets the vibe. I feel like the ULab, that track, it's interesting because you see sometimes people go and they use it as like a platform to get eyes and get attention, and then most of the time though you do see them get retained, especially because of how easy it is to recruit that. It's in your backyard. LSU's got the leg up on any school that wants to be able to get someone from there, if you ask me.
Yep. And then Jabari Antoine, I mean, he just took his official to Florida State last weekend. So I've been hearing a lot of people saying they're concerned that Jabari might lead the state because he's one of the top ranked cornerbacks in the country, and he goes to Westgate High School. Well, what happened a couple years ago with his former teammate, Derek Williams, who was one of the best safeties in the country and an All-American. He took his talents to the University of Texas, and he played a lot as a freshman, and he's probably going to be a starter this year. So people are concerned that Jabari Antoine might not go to LSU. But I think bringing Corey Raymond back into the fold, who is from that New Iberia area, Westgate is located at, I think Jabari Antoine is going to for sure sign on signing day just because of the C-Ray dynamic.
And any secondary signing we can get, I'm all for it. Because that's a Corey Raymond recruit in the secondary is going to pay dividends. That's a long-term investment. So, I mean, if he don't play in year 1, you're going to see some things from him in a potential year 2, year 3, and then a year 4, So I'm going to trust this process here. I think LSU recruiting, they're in a very good situation. And, I mean, we can even say the same thing for the baseball team. If you look at their 2024 class, it's ranked number 2 as well. If you look at their 2025 class, number 1 in the country. I feel like everybody knows what they're getting. when you sign the dotted line to the purple and gold. You understand the mindset. You understand, for the most part, the expectations. And then once you come over here, just pairing that with being consistent, with actually, getting forwards in the fire. More often than not, you wind up either playing on Sundays or swinging a wood bat. I mean, some good things are going to happen to you if you go put on those colors.
Right.
And recent news for the baseball team. Of course, you got some big additions. Let's start this off with announcing the Auburn outfielder transfer. We announced it on social media yesterday. Chris Stanfield. He's a solid batter. If you ask me, I feel like the thing you get from him the most. We just talked about consistency. He's pretty consistent. He floats around the 300 mark this year. He had about 4 or 5 home runs. Nothing crazy, but it's a consistent strike. It might not be the power strike. It might not be the clear the bases strike, but it's something that could be put in a leadoff or even a 2-hole spot to get a man on base for your cleanup hitters, for your big bats. Speaking of big bats, also, Jarrett Jones, shocking scout to the MLB Draft Combine. Yeah, he had a big year this year, and he had some big at bats. He's a giant guy, but he's a freshman. So he's the only positional player besides a pitcher to represent LSU at this combine. So for him to go out and put on a show like he did, it makes you really optimistic for the trend of LSU baseball. If Jay Johnson, even in a year like this, is able to have some shining stars and shining moments, I think that that's something you can definitely build off of. Plus, not to mention adding guys like Chris, adding guys like Connor Griffin, top 10 in the MLB draft this year in terms of prospects. He's fresh out of high school, another younger guy that LSU is going to look to keep building this foundation with at the box. I think it doesn't matter the sport, doesn't matter the situation. LSU is always doing this. A consistent trend upwards in whether it be recruiting, athletics, just the overall situation as a whole. Yeah, you did lose Brady Neal in the transfer portal, but I think what you're gaining here, comparatively to what you're losing, it's a positive return. And I'd imagine LSU baseball, if they can have a big push to the end of the year like they did this season, just somehow next year start out a little bit faster at conference play. Start out a little bit faster in the season in general. And let's see what happens. They're probably going to punch another ticket to Omaha. I feel like Jay Johnson has a good grip on this situation. And quite frankly, I know we've got a lot of talent at LSU, whether it be the football team, whether it be the basketball team, and even with the 12-man playoff in college football, I still would say my safest bet for a national champion, whether it be 2-3 year span, would probably be that LSU baseball team. Just because, the football team's in prime position, but the baseball team, they've shown me that they're at that level already, while the football team's still they're almost there. They're going to be there. It's close. It's not impossible. It's more probable than anything. But this baseball team's looking insane already. And, we had a year last year where you were scraping the bottom of the barrel in the SEC in terms of standings and rankings. And now we're in the offseason wondering, if they got a shot to get that SEC championship. That has kind of been a little bit tricky and elusive for LSU recently. But I think next year it's going to be the year. And I think, you could see some very, very positive things.
Especially with those five junior college kids they got coming in that are really, really good. I think they're gonna make a huge impact on the baseball team next year. I'm excited to see the kid Ware that's coming from Pearl River Junior College. Jay Johnson has been raving about him. I know he dealt with some injuries last year, but he's been saying that he thinks this kid can be one of the best pitchers in the country. So and I think he's gonna be injury free in the off season, so he's going to be able to work with him hands on and getting ready for next season. So, you know how big Jay Johnson is on pitching, because when you get to Omaha and you start getting into postseason play, pitching is going to get you to prevail in the end. So,
Yep.
Those other kids they got coming from junior college, they're going to be really, really pivotal into the success of LSU baseball going forward, bro.
Yeah, I'm glad to see the pitching depth and just to see the overall depth continue to get added. And I think there's not really a dire need that they aren't addressing. I think Jay Johnson has a pretty good plan, and he's probably the best coach in college baseball. There's a couple of coaches that maybe Tennessee's coach or A&M has
Mhm.
a pretty decent coach as well, Florida State. But Jay Johnson has had some pretty sustained success, even at Arizona, even at a smaller school. And another thing I want to note here is a guy like, let's say, Coach Paul Maneri, legendary coach as well. Took him about, I'd say, 6 to 7, maybe even 8 years to win a national championship. Jay Johnson, I mean, look, everybody's path is different, but Jay Johnson getting it a little bit earlier and potentially getting a little bit more before that mark, you never know what his ceiling is. And it'll be interesting. And we're mentioning Paul Maneri like he's not still coaching. He could still add a ring to the mantle
Right,
before Jay Johnson.
right.
We just got that one, you know, kind of 180 and around here. We got Mike Prima in the chat from St. Landry Parish. What's going on, Mike? Appreciate you commenting. Thank you, everybody, for joining the stream. Make sure to hit the like button. We'll be giving you these every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But we're going to switch into the segment that I know everybody's clicking for. Positional grades. What LSU football position groups are going to improve next year? 2023 was a year of growth. And like the old Michael Jordan says, you never lose, you only learn. You have to take all of these opportunities to just be a sponge, soak it up, and let's grow. First position group that I expect to do that, we kind of talked about them last stream, the running back room. This is something that I really want to see because if this happens, I think that every other dream LSU football fans have could be accomplished. They could all be realized and come to life if this running game hits their potential, follows that offensive line and helps develop that passing game for Garrett Nussmeier. Let's kind of dial it back to 2023. You only saw 1,000-yard rusher, and it was Jaden Daniels. You didn't have a running back really get close to that 1,000-yard mark, which it's a tough mark to get to, so that's not a knock on anybody, but they have some potential to get there. Is kind of what I'm getting at. If you redirect the rushing attempts, as you will, because Jaden Daniels is not there, you're going to see a lot of that talent come to the forefront. Starter, obviously, is going to be Josh Williams, if you ask me. I mean, he just got the most experience, and like you called him on Wednesday, Mr. Reliable. I feel like that's exactly what you're going to be able to, say all season long. You got Caleb Jackson hiding in the shadows. I think he's going to knock some helmets loose all season. Then John Emery
Mm.
Jr. comes back, goes into the portal, comes right back. Those three running backs, though, last year all averaged over 5 yards per carry. That is promising to me, especially because, as we mentioned, most of those guys weren't even a second or third option at times. Now they're entering a spot where they could see 10 to 15 attempts. Some of them can see, 8 to 12. There's going to be a shakeup here, and I think everyone's ready for it. And just judging by what we've seen on the spring tape, everyone's getting touches. It don't matter who you are. They're definitely going to try to, give the ball to whoever's hot and give the ball to whoever's getting them the most yards. It doesn't matter who it is. It definitely could change. I think that's one of the positions, though, that will be definitely your improving spot, your bright spot. They got, the solid experience. They got the veteran minds in there. I'm going to count John Emery and Josh Williams as two of the most experienced running backs in college football right now. It's kind of hard to say otherwise with how long they've been there. Both of them were a part of the 2019 squad or roster. And then, with that also comes the depth. It also comes the versatility because you don't have just one type of running back. If you look at
Right.
each back, they all bring something different to the table. And I think that is probably the biggest cherry on top for that room.
Man, I'm gonna go ahead and go on faith right here, man. See, I think the D line is gonna be much improved. I know when you look at the roster on paper, it might not jump out to you, but I mean, Bo Davis has a track record of just developing D linemen and bringing the mentality to that room, and so I just think that D line is gonna be much improved. I think that Bo Davis and Blake is gonna be on the same page on what these guys can do and what they can't do. I think that was a big thing with Matt House, and this is no shot at Matt House, but I think that sometimes last year you watch LSU defense and you felt like, you had some guys out there doing things that might not be in their skill set. And so I think Blake right now and coming into fall camp, he's going to sit down and dissect every kid on that D line. Him and Bo Davis are going to talk about it, and they're going to put them in the best position to be good at what they're good at doing. He's not going to ask them to do things that they're not good at doing. And so I think that's why that D line will be much improved, man. I'm gonna challenge somebody right now, man. I'm gonna challenge somebody. I'm challenging Savion Jones. I'm challenging Savion Jones, man. St. James High School product. Really, really good, high character kid. I think he should take another step this year. I think he should take another step this year, and he's gonna have to take another step this year if this LSU defense wants to be formidable. Savion is a kid that I think that Bo Davis is going to get the most out of this year. So I'm gonna go out on a limb, man. I'm gonna say this D line will be better at this 2024 season.
I could see that, especially if I had to put a grade. Let's say we're doing the report cards. We're the teacher. We're stamping a value. I'd say a defensive line last year. We're gonna be generous. We floated around a C plus. This year, I could see a B plus. I can even see them getting into A category if, like you said, Savion pops off, shows exactly what he's capable of. Quick note on Savion Jones. If you took up 2023's entire sack category and you made a top 5 defensive line sack leader list, one of those players is returning in 2024. That one player, Savion Jones. So I feel like all signs point to Bo Davis helping him grow. All signs point to Bo Davis unlocking that potential that, quite frankly, we've seen in Savion Jones for quite some time. If you dial it back to Ali Gay and Brian Kelly's first year, I'm going to compare him to Ali. I mean, Ali's way bigger. Ali's a unit, but they do remind me of each other. It's not
Kind of a similar skill set.
yeah, it's not identical, but it's something that can be compared to. If you're trying to set up the plans that we keep talking about, LSU's developmental plans, wouldn't hurt to maybe, point into that direction. But I think Savion could potentially be a little bit faster. I think he could be a little bit more disruptive. Like, I think he has that build, and it's going to be promising. I think the defensive line group, another name I would mention, Jacoby Gilroy. Uh,
Yeah.
he he's got a lot of experience. He's got a lot of depth. He's got a lot of upside. He's got a lot of size. He's going to be another key piece that this room is going to have to lean on. And I think when Bo Davis walks into this position group, he's going to unlock a lot of players, Savion and Jacobian included, where a lot of people just really didn't understand what they had. If you look at last year's draft class, you see Mason Smith, Jordan Jefferson, Makai Wingo, all of these pieces get their flowers. They're well deserved credit. They all deserve to play on Sundays. They all are phenomenal players that are going to develop into great NFL stars. But last year, if you would have told us in week 2, week 6, that 3 of these players would be taken, a lot of people would have been not necessarily confused, but maybe at times surprised. Now, whenever you see this defensive line this year, there's a lot of potential for everyone to be like, oh my God, this was hidden in the shadows this whole time, whether it be a Braden Swinson, a Womack. I'm going to switch over to another room I think is going to be insanely different in a good way. Linebacker room. I mean, this one goes without saying because, Blake Baker's going to kind of take on that dual hat that Matt House had. He's going to coach the linebackers as well as be your coordinator, which I always think is a good thing. Here's why. When you're working with the coordinator on a day-to-day basis, you really get to understand that scheme. You really get to get in his head. And I feel like that, that tutelage and that pairing and just being around someone like that can only do good things. Now, yes, we did see it in the past. Like we said, Matt House had the same, implementation, but the schemes are different. They might see things a little differently. Plus, we're talking about Blake Baker's, development of Damone Clark. He's developed plenty of talent in terms of going to the next level. And I think if you had to pick any position group on this team that has, a player with potential to be a star at the next level, I feel like one of the first names you're going to have jump off the sheet is Harold Perkins. So he's going to be a big boost to this positional group because Blake Baker is also going to, project Perk and get him out there, get him on the field, get him in space. If you look at 2023, we're talking about that sack category. Perk's at the top of it. Harold Perkins
Yep.
Jr. led LSU in sacks at 5.5. He also caught an interception. Perkio getting active in the backfield. Greg Penn, though, don't forget about him. Greg Penn is one of your most solid minds on that defensive team. Not a lot of people get it, but if somebody doesn't really know, I'm not going to say know where to go, but if someone needs to understand the check or the assignment, who are they going to? They're going to go to a linebacker. They're probably going to go to Greg Penn just because of Harold Perkins' experience and where he was at in the scheme. Greg Penn helped a lot of people last year, and I think that aspect of it, it gives him a little more respect in my book, just because he's like a field general, if you ask me. That is very, very valuable because you got a coach on the field playing with you. It's like, we see, we see Blake Baker in cleats all the time. It's like Blake Baker put on a helmet and pads, and he's out there in gaps telling everybody what to do. Another coach it's like he's got a headset already. But yeah, and last but not least, this linebacker room, Whit Weeks. He cut his teeth last year. Will he get a bigger role this year? All the fans want it. Everyone wants to see it. They wondered, where's Whit Weeks? Where's Whit Weeks? Where's Whit? This could be your year where you see him get activated. You see him get implemented. And if so, if you've got that three-headed monster of Harold Perkins, Greg Penn, and Whit Weeks, and you get them all acclimated to this scheme, that's a big, big, big boost to this defense.
Agreed. And that's a lot of experience coming back in that linebacker room. Cal Perkins, 3-year starter. Greg Penn started the last 2 years. Week started a good bit of games last year. So that's a good thing having that experience in that linebacker room. And I know Blake is going to be able to get them to play at an even higher level this year. And when you start talking about making checks at the line, and when you see these quarterbacks trying to play chess at pre-snap.
Quick disturbance. Whoa, a little audible. Hopped off, hopped on, right back, like nothing ever happened. We're talking about the tight end room. Only 40 catches all year. 36 of those catches to Mason Taylor. And I think that that's going to be a big, big improvement, just simply because you could see Mason Taylor rack in 40 to 50. You could see him be a key staple in this offense, not even just, getting on the field, helping block, helping communicate as a veteran mind, but he could be at times a primary route, a primary read, a primary target. I feel like, you would honestly be crazy not to make him one. Plus, 36 catches, that leaves 4 catches out of that 40. Who are those other people? You got Kamorian Pimpton and you got Matt Markway. They're also going to return. Who else is coming? Tre'Davious Green. This room's getting deeper and deeper and deeper as the time goes with Brian Kelly. You always heard Brian Kelly loves his tight ends. He loves incorporating them in this offense. And honestly, LSU wasn't really a big tight end spot previously. And now we're sitting in a situation where we just named 4 tight ends that you could see take the field and catch 3 to 4 catches a game. Potentially. Not all at the same time. That'd be nuts, but.
I mean, when you look at last year, excuse me, when you look at last year, is the production that Mason Taylor had compared to his freshman year was just totally different. His freshman year, he had way more of a role and a way more of an impact as a true freshman. You remember the game-winning 2-point conversion against Bama that kind of introduced itself to the LSU Tiger faithful, right? I think Mason Taylor has a bigger role this year, man. I want to see Joe Sloan get him more implemented into the vertical passing game. Because I think he has good speed, he has good hands, runs really good routes. Then when you talk about somebody like Tre'Davious Green, yeah, he's labeled as a tight end, but don't be surprised if you see LSU use him in the wide receiver room. Because he's that athletic, he can run, and he's just a mismatch nightmare. I would not be surprised if you see Joe Sloan and Cortez Hankton get together and Brian Kelly in a staff meeting and say, look, this week I want a couple packages for Tre'Davious Green. And they go trips right in the red zone, and you put Tre'Davious Green on the backside by itself, and if that safety don't help, depending on how he's playing, inside technique or whatever, look, we're going to throw it up to Tre'Davious. And that's the kind of things, that's how creative you got to start getting when you got a talent like Tre'Davious Green, who is 6'7", 200-plus pounds, and just a freak of an athlete. You know what I'm saying? So they have a lot of talent in that tight end room, man, and I think you're going to see Joe Sloan make the most of it.
And, if you pair that with the successful running game that we're predicting, those two things could be the catalyst in the offense that replace a potential, not a potential, but the losses you had Malik and Brian and Jaden. And I'm not saying that you're going to get that explosive offense back, but it's going to be hard to fall off entirely. I think that they have some pieces that they could definitely rely on. And, we talked about the defensive side improving, especially at that linebacker position. The position that everybody wants to see improve, the secondary. Everybody wants to know, how is the cornerbacks going to respond? How are the safeties going to respond? Well, last year we would say, If you got to give them a grade, they probably got around a D plus, maybe around a D minus in some people's eyes. This year, I can see them being a C plus, maybe even floating around the B minus category, just because you got the Coy Raymond effect, yeah, but also the experience continues to add. Then another thing I do want to note: Sage Ryan, Cy Alexander combining for 12 deflections. It's a little more than I would have guessed, and that's not a feather in the cap and something that's you're gonna be like, oh man, DBU is back. No, but last year, if they're doing that, what are they doing this year? Last year, if they're getting 7 picks, what are they doing this year? If we can somehow see a 50% increase in both and you get 20 deflections and then you get the 10 or 11 picks, I'm going to feel a lot more comfortable. I think that's deserving enough of another higher grade. Cornerbacks don't have to go out and be Jalen Ramsey, lockdown, man pressing, pushing everybody off the line. They don't have to do that. Would it be great? Of course. Am I waiting on it? Yeah. But in week one, as long as you don't have a busted coverage every drive, as long as they can actually get into their assignments and, that depth and that experience starts to shine, I think they're in a good spot. J.K. Johnson coming back, that's going to surprise a couple of people. You didn't see him at all last year, and now you're going to get to kind of get used to him a little bit. Zy Alexander, yeah, we talked about him on Wednesday. Not too sure how he's going to return. That's a finicky injury. We've talked about it time and time and time again on this show. Just how excruciating something like that is and, how demanding that recovery is. So if you're going to have to start looking at other pieces, whether it be a freshman in P.J. Woodland, whether it be a younger Ashton Stamps, that's kind of where the red flag is, and that's kind of where people are worried. But if you look at that safety room, if you throw a guy like Sage Ryan out there, Jordan Gilbert, transfer.
It went down.
Yeah, we're back on though. All right, so we were saying the secondary, I just feel like, you got that safety experience that can kind of help mitigate the cornerback inexperience. It can kind of help mitigate potential issues that you could see in that cornerback room. And, if you give those safeties just a little bit of direction, especially with the talent that they have, I think that that's going to be not necessarily the difference from last year to this year. It'll be night and day, though.
Yeah, a lot. And then don't forget about somebody like Toviano. Toviano had a lot of experience last year.
Yep.
And he is the type of corner that Corey Raymond is used to having, with that length, athleticism, has some versatility, being able to play a safety position too. So don't forget about somebody like Toviano in that secondary.
Yep, and I'll even throw out Jair Brown out there too. Yeah, Toviano and Brown definitely going to be good implementations into this room. And I feel like, if we're looking at last year's DB depth to this year's, you do have some familiar faces. You do have some spots where you can put, your trust in. And I just think, in recent years when you've been pulling out of the transfer portal, this is a little bit of a different time. This is a time where I think LSU fans can be a little more comfortable. But of course, we're going to have to see this all transpire in week one. And hopefully afterwards, hopefully not just the opening week. Hopefully
you definitely going to get a lot of opportunities going against a Lincoln Riley offense.
Yeah, and I'm just going to say one thing. I'm glad it ain't Caleb Williams that they're playing. I'm glad that it'll be, a potential Miller Moss or a Maiva. I'm glad it's not going to be a former Heisman slated #1 pick, because then that test, that defensive awakening in week one, I would have a little bit different tune, if you ask me. But let's end this stream off here. We're going to talk a little bit about your Boston Celtics, your NBA champions, if you will. It was kind of a snooze fest series. They put the whooping on the Mavericks from the opening tip-off. Game 1, Game 2, Game 3, all pretty much alike. Game 4, the Mavericks are like, hey, no, we're kind of here. We're not asleep. We're actually an NBA basketball team. And then the inevitable happens when they return to Boston. I think, first things first, I'm very happy that Jaylen Brown got his flowers. Big Jaylen Brown guy. Not taking anything away from Jason Tatum. I just think Jaylen Brown has tremendous, upside. And I think that every single time, I'm not saying that you don't have any other players on the squad, but I just think one of your more reliable hands, especially on the offensive side, Jaylen Brown. Is it because Jason Tatum's always crashing boards, guarding heavier guys? Who knows? But the distributing, the overall offensive efficiency I've seen from Jaylen Brown, not even just this finals, but the playoffs as a whole, It was really, really good basketball. And coming from a Rockets fan who almost got Jaylen Brown in the offseason, it is wild to see him get that MVP award, bro. Because it's like, what could have been? And we were going to push all the chips in on Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet instead of OJB. But shout out to the Celtics. And I feel like this NBA Finals, at least it wasn't a same old, same old. Like either way it went, you saw a new champion. You saw somebody get their first ring that they've been chasing, whether it be a Luka or whether it be a Jason Tatum. So I mean, I'm glad that something different happened, and I'm kind of interested to see what's next for the NBA.
You know, I'm so glad to see a player like two players like Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown won a championship and quiet all the naysayers. If you go back and you listen to what Jason Tatum said post game, he said, "What they gonna say now?" And I thought that was a classic statement for him to say because the last 3 years, everybody's been saying, "Oh, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, they can't get it done. You need to blow it up. They need to move on and go get somebody that can get it done in Boston." Bro, Jaylen Brown, 26, Jason Tatum, 27 years old. You know, when you're talking about professional sports, particularly basketball, bro, this is the best of the best. It takes time to build something with a franchise. It takes time to build chemistry and go through different experiences and failures to be able to get to the pinnacle of winning a championship. And that's what you've seen. That's what you just seen. They went through all the heartaches. Man, I remember them going to a game 7 in a conference finals versus LeBron when it was in like year 2 or year 3 in the league, right? You knew what was to come. They just had to keep going through some failures and going through different experiences, man, to be able to finally get it done. And that's what you've seen this season. Last year, I really thought the Celtics were going to win it last year. But what happened? Jason Tatum gets hurt, right, in the game 7. I think the first 3-4 minutes of the game, and that whole game changed once Jason Tatum got hurt. If that doesn't happen, I think the Celtics get to the finals, and they beat the Nuggets. No disrespect to the Miami Heat last year, but Miami Heat had no business being in the finals versus the Denver Nuggets. Nobody gave the Heat a flying chance last year. And I really think the Celtics could have been going back-to-back this year if Jason Tatum didn't get hurt in that game 7. And so I'm glad they was able to quiet all the naysayers. People need to understand, man, in professional sports, it takes time for you to be able to come into the league, get adjusted, get experience, understand how the business works, go through some failures, and then like ultimately, if you a talent like a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown, man, you eventually going to put yourself in position to win a ring. And I thought Brad Stevens, who needs to win Executive of the Year, by the way, did a great job putting his team together. You go get a Drew Holiday, who was a champion and a winner, and I thought Drew Holiday had a good opportunity to win the Finals MVP. But Jaylen Brown brought it, he was able to solidify it. So I think it might have been the 3rd game they won when the Mavericks started coming back, and he had some clutch shots down the stretch to be able to prevail them to put that series up 3-0. And I thought that was the most important game of the series in game 3. You know what I'm saying? Because if you lose game 3, now it's 2-1. Now Dallas has some momentum and they have some confidence going into that game 4. So I thought that was the most critical game of the series. But going back to Brad Stevens, you brought a Drew Holiday in. Then you ain't got a Porzingis, right? Porzingis, yeah, he was hurt for much of this series, but the first 2 games of the series, that's when they needed him most to kind of take the life out of Dallas. And Porzingis played his tail off in game 1 and game 2, and it just made them unstoppable to guard. Because when you got 5 people on the court that can just shoot the ball as well as they do, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Porzingis, Drew Holiday, and Derek White, that made Dallas vulnerable on defense because now Gofford and Lively, you take their rim protectors from the basket, and now you get the driving lanes to Tatum and Drew Holiday and whatnot. And I thought that was a difference in the whole finals, man, having 5 guys to space the floor.
Yeah, and we're talking about patience and just going through adversity. You can even compare this situation to something that LSU football is going through. You got to get to an SEC championship and lose. You've got to go through a season where you have a Heisman and some things don't go your way. And inevitably, it could all turn into a situation where, like Michael Jordan says, You learn, you never lose. Don't lose, you just learn. Gotta
Yep.
soak it up while you can get it. That adversity definitely does bring either the best out of you, or sometimes it could bring the worst out of you. But it's all important to just
It's
try
all
to,
about it's all about how you respond, baby.
yeah, it's all about that mindset. All about up here. Well, thank you everybody for joining this stream. We had a little good one. We had some activity coming in and out. Catch us on Friday. We're doing it Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Every week. We're rolling on through. Thank you, G, for hopping on. Hope you have a good one, man. Hope y'all have a good one too. This has been the Verdin Verdict Sports Talk